On behalf of the defense, I want to thank you for the sacrifice that you've made in your jury service and coming here and helping us see justice. We know it's no easy task, and we intend, I'm sure both sides, on getting you home as quickly as possible once you have all of the information that you need. Probably the most comprehensive investigation that you will ever come across and in the history of the state of Florida. It was directed at one person and one person only. You will hear stories about a family that is incredibly dysfunctional. You will hear about ugly things, secret things, things that people don't speak about, things that Casey never spoke about. This family must keep its secrets quiet. And it all began when Casey was 8 years old and her father came into her room and began to touch her inappropriately. How parents should stand by their child, but instead are throwing them under the bus. Sex abuse does things to us. It changes you. George Anthony approached Casey and started yelling at her. "Where's Kaylee? Where's Kaylee? Look what you've done! Your mother will never forgive you, and you will go to jail for child neglect for the rest of your freaking life." Her death was covered up. Why did George do this? Why didn't he call 911? George Anthony knew she wasn't working, but it's all part of the lie. It's all part of the facade. Nobody cares. You'll ask yourself when you hear this, who would report gas cans missing? Who? Well, the answer is George Anthony will. And the reason why will come to light 6 months later. The only person and the only piece of evidence, the only physical evidence that you will find in this case that connects Kaylee's remains to anyone at the home is this duct tape. And that's why these gas cans become such a critical piece of information and such a critical piece of evidence. You cannot deny it. You can see it. You can feel it. You can touch it. So what he does is on the 24th of June, 9 days after Kaylee drowns, he reports gas cans missing. He calls the police. Now, this is an ex-detective. Who knows? When you report gas cans stolen, there's no detective that's going to come out and investigate the case because you've got some missing gas cans. George Anthony carried around this guilt for many, many months. It got to its breaking point on January 22nd of 2009 when he decided to try and take his own life. Fortunately, he was unsuccessful and the police found him. And most interestingly, you'll hear about two private investigators who 1 month prior to Kaylee being found were out searching right at the area where Kaylee was found. What's interesting is these two private detectives were working for George and Cindy Anthony at the time. This may be a coincidence. Maybe. All right. The car. As I told you, this car will be the subject of much debate. The car is towed on the 30th. The tow truck driver doesn't smell anything. The tow yard company has to wait 4 days before they send out a notice. Your car is here. We have your car. Come get it if you want it. That would have been the 4th or the 5th of July. The Anthony family should have gotten that notice around the 7th or the 8th. Well, they don't go pick up the car until the 15th. George doesn't pick up the car until the 15th. Why? Why wait a week? They will tell you they didn't see the notice. But yet that car sat there for almost a week after they had notice. Again, questions we will never be able to answer for you. Now, most importantly, you're going to hear evidence that while at this public supermarket passing out flyers of his missing granddaughter, George Anthony met a younger woman by the name of Crystal Holloway. They became close. They started dating, or they had an affair, whatever you want to call it. He then began going to her house and visiting her. And on one day, before Kaylee's remains were found, her name is Crystal Holloway. Here's a photo of her. And they began to carry on this relationship. This is the woman in the circle looking over at George at Kaylee's memorial is Crystal Holloway. We are not, nor will we ever, say that George Anthony killed Kaylee or that he had something to do with her death. And the reason's simple. It's not true. It was an accident. And despite how easy it is to point the finger and say there's something sinister here and maybe play on your emotions, the fact of the matter is this is an accident that snowballed out of control.